All right, kids, welcome back. We're in the shop today. I apologize, I only got one video out last week. It was a lot of running around and craziness. So today I'm gonna do kind of just a overview of what I use for knives. I've got a whole bunch. I've got way more than I'm showing you here. Some are in rotation, some are out of rotation. It all depends on what I'm using at the time. So I basically split my knives into slaughter and finish processing. And there is definitely a difference. I usually don't swap them back and forth. I do have these knives right here. I'll just show you this one because it's out. These are the Giesser 6-inch stiff blade, straight blade. I love these. And it all depends on how you cut as well. When it comes to me, I definitely like having a little more leverage with the blade. As you can see, there is not, well, you can't see it in there. There is not a lot of flex when it comes to that. Moving over to this one, this is a 6-inch Victorinox rosewood handle. These are the semi-flex. So as you can see, you can get a good bend on these. And this is really nice for when you are going around the H-bone, something like that, doing some bone work where you do kind of want to have a little bit of give to where you're doing stuff. I don't actually know the brand name on this one, but this is probably my favorite breaking knife I've ever had. I'd say this guy is probably about 10 inches. It probably, at one point it was definitely a 12-inch breaker. It's got a little bit of a thicker spine and it just works fantastic. It fits perfectly in the hand, for me at least. And that's something you're gonna figure out as you start buying knives, working with knives, is some knives are gonna work better for you than they would for me. It all depends on what you're doing with them. So moving over to my slaughter setup, I just keep everything in my scabbard. I'm gonna put the link to a lot of this stuff down in the description. I'm gonna try and get some affiliate links up too. I buy, I'm gonna say 90% of all of my cutlery and stuff like that from Walton's online. They're a really good seasoning company. They're also a really good, just overall, they have everything that you're gonna, I think that's their slogan, is like everything but the meat. Everything you're looking for to start a shop, or even if you're just doing some stuff on the side for yourself, they will have it. Lugs, trays, knives, equipment, apparel, like aprons, stuff like that. Everything you're gonna need, you're gonna find it there. So again, I've got the Giesser 6-inch on this. I love it for slaughters. I do have a Victorinox in here, semi-flex. I 99% of the time use this just to bleed. If it's on a smaller animal like a pig, possibly I'll use it to bung the animal out where I need to get in there a little bit closer and I don't want to pop any of the intestines, stuff like that. But again, it's got that little bit of flex to it that is nice, but it works very well on bleeding an animal. They do sell specific bleeding knives, but unless you're doing like 30 a week, it's not worth it. This knife will work great. You just gotta work and find the actual spot where you're gonna be popping those blood arteries. And then I just have a regular Victorinox skinning knife. Again, if this is something where you're gonna be doing 1 or 2 beef a year, or a couple pigs, or even deer, I use this for deer as well, this is gonna be great for you. But they do also carry, which I am hopefully gonna be getting soon, pig skinners. So as you can see, that has a pretty decent curve in it. And when you're using it, which is really nice for beef, is you can have really long strokes. Calm down. You can have nice long strokes to be able to actually move your way through skinning the animal. On a pig one, it's a little more straight with a little bit more of a lip on it. And what that's gonna do, you're not gonna be able to get those long sweeping cuts on a pig. You're just not. It's just the way the hide is on them, it's very difficult. Unlike on a beef, where you can able to really get tension on that hide and you'll be able to do swipes all the way down the side of it. When it comes to steels, I've got a couple here. I left one in the house, I should have grabbed it. I really like this one for all my finish work. So I'll come over here so you can kind of see it better. This has a coarse side and it also has a fine side. So what's really nice about this is whenever you see me in my videos honing a knife or anything like that, I am bringing the edge back. So when you use a knife, it can be razor sharp, but on a microscopic level, it's rounding over, or there are pieces that are kind of coming out of formation on it. And what this does is I like to start on the coarse end. And what that does is it lines everything back up. And then you go over to your fine end and it just finishes the job and gets everything where you want it. So, I actually had to stop for a while. When I was at my USDA plant I was working at, I sharpened my knives twice a day. I sharpened before I even, right after we set up, before we walked in for the day, I sharpened all my knives. And then after lunch, before I went back in, sharpen everything again. A sharp knife is going to be your best friend. Not only is it going to make your life 1,000 times easier, it's also going to be extremely safer. When you have a knife that is, as my wife calls it, scary sharp, you're not working as hard because you're letting the knife do the work. It's got the sharpness it needs to be able to do everything you need to do. When you have a dull knife, you're putting a lot more effort into moving that blade through what you're cutting. And that's where it gets dangerous. I've cut myself a dozen times, more than a dozen times at this point, and 98% of the time it was because I was being stupid. I didn't want to go sharpen my knives because it was the end of the day or something. And it's caused me bodily harm. On my slaughter setup, I've just got this little guy. I freaking love it. A customer gave it to me. I forgot my steel at the house and he goes, oh, hold on, I think I got one. And runs in, brings this out, and it fits perfectly right there in my scabbard. So you say, hey, you know what? I haven't used that thing in a year and a half, 2 years. Go for it, it's yours. So I was very appreciative of that. This one is just a coarse blade, which for slaughter is fine. Or not a coarse blade, a coarse steel. They do also sell ones that are fully smooth. I don't love those ones as much. I really like the combo on this. And again, everything except for probably a handful of things on here you can find on Walton's. I'm gonna go in and try and get the links for all those, put them in the description. Some of the other things that are important. Find yourself a good bandsaw or a handsaw. This is not a good handsaw. This is just one of those Cabela specials. It works. Again, if you're doing a beef a year or doing something like that or a handful of deer, this will work for you. I don't love it for how much I use it, obviously being a full-time butcher. And a lot of the time I usually just end up using my Sawzall to do any of the bigger cuts and then the smaller cuts on the bandsaw. That just works for me. Again, if you're doing a couple things, this is gonna work fine. The LEMs, I think it's about a 27 inch, are fantastic. I know me and Josh, the Renegade Butcher, on the Renegade Butcher podcast, have talked about that. The LEMs are great, and if you do end up getting one of those, do not use the saw blades that they give you. They work, they're okay, but if you're using them for extended periods of time for a lot of work, go on the LEM website and buy the thicker blades. This has the thicker blade, but again, it's not the quality I like. And what I mean by thicker, I do not mean thickness this way, I mean thickness this way. And even this one is a little thin for my liking. What happens is, especially with some of the thinner blades, the blade will actually start to warp as you're cutting, and it just doesn't give you a nice smooth cut. With a bit of a thicker blade, you'll be able to power through those feather bones. You can chine a beef with those thicker blades, and they're fantastic. I don't use the handsaw enough to warrant me going out and buying one. Meat hook. These will save your life. I don't care if you're only doing a couple a year and you can make it by. These are like $12 and they are completely worth it. Do not quote me on that price. More than likely, as I go through this, I'm just gonna pop up pictures of the listings right here so you guys will be able to see like what the prices are as I'm going through. Again, and I'll put all those links in the description. I've talked about it a lot, and I'm sure you've seen me struggle carrying stuff like quarters around. Having a hook like this is the only reason I'm able to do it with any professionally as I can. Yes, you can grab onto it and heave ho it wherever you need to, but having this to be able to actually get into a piece of bone, to give yourself a good anchor point to hold on to something is crucially important. Again, so that's for like slaughter, but also at the same time, again, you've seen me use this, if you follow the channel a bunch, you've seen me use this hundreds of times, pulling meat off the carcass to bring onto the table. And what that does is it gives you, again, an anchor point to be able to put the pressure that you need and a good hold on whatever cut you're pulling off. Again, you can do, if you really wanted to, you could do a whole cow with these three things and a handsaw. You just could. But these are so crucially important that I almost put this at the top of the list before you buy your knives. It sounds dumb to say, but you will thank me in the long run. Another thing, we've just got a generic scraper. I got this from one of my knife guys when I was working at a retail store. They just help keep everything clean. When you're working on these benches and stuff like that, the fat and everything, fat and meat and stuff like that will just stick to these benches. And you'll be able to scrape everything off. They work really well. They're not mandatory like the meat hook or any of these knives, but they're helpful. And then if you're doing bone-in cuts, bone duster. These are nice. Again, they're like 10 bucks, maybe. You can go all out and you can buy the metal ones. I haven't used the metal ones a bunch, and the ones I haven't been too impressed with. I usually buy 3 of these at a time. They're cheap enough, they're easy enough. I've broken a handful over time. What'll happen is if they start getting worn down, these will start breaking out of them. And it is what it is. Heck, you can still use them a little bit longer after they've broken a little bit. It's not a huge deal. And I'm gonna pop back to this one. Now I'm on kind of like the miscellaneous stuff. Scabbards are really nice if you're doing a decent amount of slaughtering. That way, you're keeping your knives cleaner, because this is just a piece of chain I got from the hardware store with a carabiner. Pop it on your waist, and I'm able to, instead of taking, if I'm switching between knives, instead of, all right, now I'm gonna put this down here, I don't know what was there. Like, you're in the middle of a beef slaughter. There's blood, there's poop, there's a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. When you have something like this, slide it in, it's up off the ground, it's exactly where you need it on your person, and you don't have to worry about it. I like the metal ones. These come apart super easy for cleaning. They're a little more durable. They do sell the plastic ones. Again, like 12, 15 bucks. They're super cheap. They are super long. I have one in here, I don't even know where it is. I usually end up cutting them off because the plastic ones usually come down to here, so you can actually put in like these knives. Those are used more on like a production level setting, in the big slaughterhouses and stuff like that. But yeah, no, so these are the knives I use. I do have a cleaver. I don't use it much. The majority of the time I use it to split pig heads, because I usually don't like to bring my Sawzall blades down that far. Pig teeth are, I don't even know, they might be the hardest substance or material known to man. And I'm sure I've mentioned that in a past video. If you touch your knife to a pig tooth, it will be dull. No ifs, ands, or buts. I've been doing this a lot, and it's happened a lot. And it's the same with saw blades. If you cut through pig teeth, they will dull your blades faster than anything on the planet. So usually I'll just use a cleaver for that. I'll cut all the way down to about 3/4 of the way through the head, cleaver through it, and that's that. So yeah, this is a good overview of just kind of my EDC when it comes to processing animals. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and change camera angle, and I'm gonna sharpen some of these up. I just used all my slaughter knives today. I wasn't super happy with how I sharpened them this morning. I was kind of rushing around. So what I'm going to do is, actually I probably won't let those sit. I gotta cut up the beef tomorrow, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my finish knives sharpened. And we'll kind of give you a closer up look on how I do it. So we will go ahead and see you guys in a second. All right, so when it comes to sharpening knives, again, there's probably 1,000 videos of this. I'm not saying my way's the right way, but this is how I do it. So I pulled this out. This was my original honing whetstone. Again, I mean, what is this? A Smith Tri-Hone. You can pick these up for 30 bucks over at Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, probably any hardware store you go to. With how much I use them, I don't love these. I just don't, they just don't work for me. They're a little small, and I don't love the stone material. So I bought this guy. I think I just snagged this on Amazon. This one was almost, more than likely right now, this is probably over $100. But I freaking love this thing. You're able to replace the stones once they start to wear down. It has a well in the bottom for mineral oil. And that's something that's super important when you're dealing with whetstones, is they need to be lubricated. I just use regular mineral oil. I keep it in this squirt bottle, and I squirt down the stone. And so this is again another tri-stone. So this has coarse, medium, and fine. I usually, depending on how sharp the knife is when I start, I will always start with coarse. I want to start at what I call a blank slate of, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm starting off at a point where I don't want it to be somewhat sharp and start off on a medium and really not get the honing that I need. So with a lot of these, they will actually come with a little piece of plastic that has the correct angles that you need to be at. So I don't use that. I've been sharpening my own knives for a while now, so it's just kind of muscle memory. Let me try and get the best angle of where I want to put this. So it's kind of tough at that angle, but essentially what you're gonna do is start right at the top and start with your blade basically right here, so the end's here. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna draw this knife to the point that the tip is going to be coming off on this side. And that gives you a full pass. I usually keep paper towel around, that way I can take off any extra mineral oil. So, and then I just do the same thing. I always make sure that I have even passes. So I'll never do 5 on one side, 7 on another, or something like that. I like to keep it very even and make sure that it's even across the board. Because like I said, what you're doing when you're doing this is you're taking off all of the metal shards that are not in the right direction for this knife. So, and you'll see it when I pull it off. Everything that's in that mineral oil right there, all that cloudy stuff, that's metal shavings. So those are those are little chunks of metal that are coming off the blade. So I'm gonna go ahead, do the same thing on this guy. And we'll pop this guy on. So this one is a little more, it's not tricky. It's just, you just gotta kind of get the hands for it, get the groove for it. So again, we're gonna start up here, and instead of just pulling straight down this way, what I like to do is curve the knife out. So you're doing a little more movement with it, but you're getting even all the way across the blade. And again, that's the most important part of it, is making sure your whole blade is even across the board. You don't want part of your blade to be extremely sharp and then all of a sudden have a chunk of it that you can barely cut butter with. This is absolutely a learned skill. I am not 100% sure if I am going to be the one to teach you this. I'm trying to figure out the filament on it. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to change camera angles a little bit once I move over to the medium stone. And what I'm gonna do is try to show you at the right angle of where I put my knives. And another important thing about that is all the angles are gonna be different depending on the thickness of the blade and how you're doing it. So it's a lot finer of an angle on this boner knife because the spine of the blade is a lot thicker. And you can look at, I've had this one a long time. So you can see there was probably another ½ inch on here. You can see how the shape has changed of the blade of sharpening over time. And you can actually see, I really haven't sharpened it that even. This down here hasn't really been touched much, but this up here has shaped the edge of it. So I'm gonna go ahead, pop the camera off, kind of set you up at a better angle to see the angle of this going. All right, so let's see if this is a little bit of a better camera view. So, like I said, it's gonna be a lot finer of an angle, and you're just gonna pull this blade across. It's not even a 1/16 of an inch up off the back. But again, once you do this enough, you'll have the muscle memory of it and you'll be able to sharpen any knife you got. I will say, my everyday carry that I have in all my videos, it is the dullest knife I own. It's kind of the situation of like a mechanic carrying around a piece of shit or driving around a piece of shit car. that thing gets so much abuse and so much use, and it just never gets sharpened, to the point that I actually need to bring it to my buddy who made it to actually put on the belt sander to shorten it a little bit, because I have sharpened it enough to that it's actually lost a decent amount of blade. So now the spine is thicker than where the actual blade is. So that's a fun one. But so like I said, this one, the blade is a little bit, the spine is a little bit thicker. So you're gonna be up just a little bit more to get the right, angle for it. All right, so we're back on the fine stone. So like I said, this is a tri-stone sharpener, coarse, medium, and fine. You'll notice again, these are pretty soaked with mineral oil. When you get a new one of these, you'll spray mineral oil on the fine, and within a couple seconds, the mineral oil is gone. It's a more porous stone that's gonna suck up all of that mineral oil. Once you get to the fine stone though, it's exactly what it's named. It's a very solid stone that it's not really gonna absorb a ton of the mineral oil. What it's gonna do is it's gonna have everything on top, and it's essentially almost a polishing stone of making sure your knife is exactly where you want it. So we're just gonna run it on here a little bit. You can almost hear the difference if I ever stop talking. And it sounds like, instead of your knife scraping against the stone, you can hear it basically glide against the stone. Yeah, that's about where I want it, to where you can shave your thumbnail. I actually had to stop doing that because, like I said, at the slaughterhouse, I was sharpening at least 3 knives twice a day. And how I would test it is I would go, all right, oh, there's that. And you'd see little pieces of thumbnail come down. Well, all of a sudden I did it one day not thinking about it. And I was like, that hurt. And I had looked, and my thumbnail was almost an exact 45-degree angle. So I had to switch to another nail for a little bit. All right, so that one's done. We'll finish. I don't take a ton of time on the fine stone. It's more of a feeling thing of like, all right, and sound. All right, that sounds right. That sounds like how I want it. All right, so fresh off the stone, I don't like to use the coarse side of this steel. I would rather just use the fine. I've already done enough work on it. The coarse is when you're in the middle of processing. You've already been going, you've already broken down a bunch of stuff, and you just kind of have to get that blade back to where it needs to be. Once again, as with everything I tell you on this channel, there are 1,000 ways to do this. This is not the responsible way to hone your knife, but it's the way I do. It's the way I was taught. Every shop I've been in since then has been like, what are you doing? So this is how I hone a knife, is I do everything directly towards me, and it's super fun to not even look at it, make direct eye contact with someone you're talking to while you're doing it. But again, I've been doing this for a decade. It's muscle memory at this point. And get everything nice and cleaned up. Again, there are other ways to do it. I know people that do it. I couldn't even attempt to do it. Like, do it like this, or they'll do it away from that. It just feels wrong. I don't like it. Again, this is not the responsible way. I've sliced my thumb a couple times doing this, just not paying attention. But it's all about calculated risk. Like I said, I have been doing it this way for over 10 years at this point, and it's just the way I'm comfortable with it. So, oh yeah, that's real nice. So, now that we have everything sharpened up, I wanted to show you an example. So, I've got a piece of paper, a cut sheet. So, this is where the benefit of having the same knife works out. So, this is my slaughter knife. I just used it today, processed beef, and put it in the cooler. This is the one we just sharpened. Again, this will still probably be fairly sharp, but, well, guess not. It's doing more tearing than it is anything else. Also, it's humid as hell and it's fairly wet. This is the knife we just did. So again, there's some tear in there just because the paper's humid, but there is a lot more slicing that actually does happen. Let me grab a little bit of paper. All right. So this is just regular freeze paper. Here's the boner knife we just did. Yeah. It knows I'm filming. Yeah. So, if everything wasn't moist, it would be a lot better filming material, but unfortunately it's not. Again, I am not telling you this is the end all be all way to hone your knives. What I am telling you is this is how I do it. You can get by with one of these. If you just have a hunt camp up north or whatever that you're going to and you want to have your gutting knife sharp, pick up one of these for 30 bucks. It's not worth the investment on a $100 one. I mean, it is. I would tell you, buy this. But if you're on a budget, grab one of these. It will work. It absolutely does. For me, with how much I use it, it's probably just not the case. But I hope this was helpful for everyone. I've had a couple people ask about knife videos. These are what I use and this is how I maintain them. So I hope it was helpful. If you have any comments, please, or questions, if you have any questions, ahead of myself. If you have any questions, please comment on the video. I will do the best I can to get back to you with it. And please like and subscribe this video and to the channel. We're having a lot of fun when it comes to the podcast. The podcast has taken a bit of a shift and gotten a lot better. We had a backwoods edition on Saturday, and that went off the rails pretty quick. I'm gonna have some shorts and some clips come out from that one. We had a good time. We have Laura from Kenyon Acres coming on this Saturday to talk about her Hereford pig setup. I buy all my Herefords from Laura, and they are fantastic. So I'm interested to hear the secrets. I am not sure what the next video I'm putting out this week is. We're gonna figure it out as we go along. And again, I'm trying to stick to 2 a week. I didn't last week, but life goes on. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a great day.